Hi, John. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. So, this is a follow up from our conversation last week about your business and your data management needs and how we're having success helping organizations like yours make data driven decisions through trusted data. I thought today we could spend a few minutes sharing what we've learned from companies like yours, and I'll use this a fake whiteboard to share and have a conversation. Today, we have over 4,000 customers, and our focus is in providing clean, complete, and uncompromised data for everyone. Now, we believe that you'll have a competitive advantage by using trusted data in your decision processes. We help businesses of all sizes, and with my background in financial services and my focus as a customer success manager, I gained a lot of real world experience how our customers are really benefiting from this in their businesses today. Now, we believe that bad data puts every decision at risk. Whether we start in your firm in the marketing space, or in finance, or in customer service, or in risk reporting and analysis, or helping your bank to respond in this very highly regulated market. Now, you alluded to this in our last conversation, something that we both know that businesses like yours are using data to improve productivity, reduce risk, provide new products, and expand market presence. Now, my question is, how can you do those things providing a safer, more compliant, less risky environment in the enterprise if you fully can't trust that data? Now, these issues are imperative to maintain market share, much less grow market share in this highly competitive banking space that you're in. Now, I know that you shared that banks don't really make money in the retail sector till their customers are using 2.4 plus products from their bank. I also remember that you said that growth for your bank is a mixture of inorganic plus organic growth. I also heard that straight through processing is a pressing need in the bank, especially in treasury operations. Now, this data must be clean and trusted to sum up what daily financial position the lines of business are in, especially in this global business that you're in. Now, you also alluded to that trust in your data and in your processes are being under regulator scrutiny. I also heard that it's being addressed at the highest levels within the bank. Now, we're helping several other tier one banks solve both here on Wall Street as well as some of the largest banks in Canada and abroad. And when it comes to data, we look at two key vectors. And I thought I'd just kind of map them out. These vectors we can think of as speed and integrity, right? And when we think about speed and integrity, when we talk about speed, we're talking about how rapidly the line of business or even central IT can prepare and deliver the data. Now, you have to really match the needs of the business as it requires it. And I know that a lot of times what that really means is matching the regulators' SLAs. Now, when we talk about speed in central IT, you and I both know that the inability to deliver timely supporting data on fraud cases has caused your bank, as well as all the top tier banks, to be under regulatory scrutiny due to the simple request for supporting information when it comes to such as FINRA brokerage transaction requests. Now, the ability to get those emails and supporting Reuters and Bloomberg reference material within the operations window often is quote unquote simple, but it's also difficult to really accomplish. Now, Forrester did a study by polling CIOs, and it found that only 40% of CIOs you know, are able to say that they're delivering the data that the business demands. And quite frankly, 40% is failing. It's failing at allowing IT to have a real seat at the table. It's failing on the brand, and it creates risks to the business to keep the business off page one. Now, failing to provide a background of confidence that the business decisions can be made on regulatory and risk reporting. When we look at the integrity side of the vector, we look at this from a few lenses. One of them is, do you have the data sources to even have a full picture? And when we look at these data sources, they're both in the bank and outside the bank. Now, once you've gathered these data sources, are they in the appropriate formats that you need in order to do analysis? And are the golden records inside of the bank being updated and accurately pulled to respond to the data requests? So that means, of course, within your industry, data lineage, data provenance, who's touched the data, and can that be shown to a regulator? What transforms have been done on the data? What blending of the data has been done? What divisions have touched the data? And if the data has a context to the correct purpose that the person is making the request around. Now, unfortunately, most banks your size don't do better on the data integrity side either. And there was a Harvard business review study, and what it showed is that about 50%, I think the number was 53%, of critical data is actually free from errors. This again, if we kind of look at it this way, is failure. This is failure of understanding the life cycle of the data and the integrity for use across the whole enterprise. So one question I could very easily ask, and you're probably asking all of your management, is, how would you rate the bank from a speed and an integrity perspective? I know that, it is critical to have both speed and integrity. But what we've seen historically is that organizations really take an either-or approach. And the real data quality management and the real access to real-time data is not met. And the board recognizes it. And thus all the requalifications of all applications across the bank that's happening for you today. Now, because the bank is so batch-oriented, with end-of-day business processes slowing decisions down, I know that this batch-oriented approach is something that you really want to address. It ends up being slower than what the business is asking for from the data. I also know, because of your size and the sheer number of regulations you're going up against, the sheer processing time of all the data is impeding the business from its agile and optimal responsiveness to the market. And I know this has to do with things like dynamic pricing so that you can deal with mortgages and credit cards. I know that it has to do with liquidity management and liquidity management analysis under FRB stability requirements. It also deals with things like operational access for credit card processing and fraud reduction. Now, speed is an approach here where we're really combining data clarity and data quality issues. So what ends up popping up is shadow IT. And that shadow IT has a cost, right? It has a cost associated with having many of the same type of applications, and in order to give a particular line of business access to the information that they need. And the line of business IT spend on SaaS technologies, public cloud for the use of analytics, account management and CRM systems has a huge spend considerations. And so what this is really called, this kind of connection between these two vectors, is really a form of data chaos. And that data chaos is what your bank, I'm hearing, is facing today. And when we talk about this either or approach, it's like pulling on a string. And that that string that you pull on is really connecting the integrity space and the speed abilities for gathering data and processing data and making decisions. And this string creates a stress in your ecosystem, and the actual need that I heard you talking about was a programmatic approach for data governance, and that means really having integrity of the data that you have. And the reason that I'm hearing that it's becoming a bigger issue today is, one, sheer volume of the size of the data, the number of the applications using it, and the derivatives of the data elements themselves, where data is combined with other data to create a new data object in your bank. Now, there's several different issues competing for attention and may cause major spend in the line of business. So that shadow IT is kind of one of them, right? Now, most average organizations have several hundred SaaS applications across the enterprise, but for you, with hundreds of subsidiary organizations, you have dozens of the same SaaS applications. I know that you use 4 major CRMs in one line of your brokerage division alone, and that's just for the tri-state area. There's a lot of money being spent here without enough governance in place so that this data can be safely used outside of the brokerage community for next best action, as an example. Now, the second issue, the first one being shadow IT and the cost of that, the second issue we're often seeing is that within the business, every user is a data user, right? And you might consider this like generational data. When we talk about generational data, even just gray data, the semi-structured data that you use every day, like email, right? It's growing at such a fast rate. Contracts, marketing, sales, operations, risk reporting, all have this data, and people have to use this data to do their jobs effectively. Now, the third area that I'm seeing is really around regulations and the myriad of changes happening, both from a data privacy perspective, a transactional reporting and process analysis perspective, and I'm seeing that the banks, including yours, in the news, have a massive increase of regulatory oversight. MiFID II in Europe, GDPR, but also here with FINRA against analyst requests have been rising over the past 3 years. Now, some banks like yours are not just surviving this, but they're actually finding ways of thriving and using this integrity and speed as a fundamental way of providing a competitive differentiator. Now, when we can combine data clarity and business agility, the ability to make decisions on the trusted data, we have a winning combination. So what we're talking about is having IT and the business, IT and the business really working together and working under a programmatic approach. We believe that the world of data is fundamentally a team sport. So the approach from your perspective is an operations conversation. How can those operations be shored up, streamlined, simplified? So some of the topics you spoke about in our last conversation was the ability to understand the current financial position of the corporate clients that you have on a global basis. I also remember you talking about liquidity needs and understanding the different lines of business to remove lazy cash in your treasury systems. Now, this is fundamentally a request from you to have greater insights so that you can do things like dynamic pricing, brokerage forecasting out a week, out a month, out a quarter, to be able to determine what options you have to purchase and why you might lower dynamic loan offerings through third parties, and doing this fundamentally with some backed up data. So the goal I'm hearing that I wanted to really address is moving from this chaos area to this clarity component. And as we move from data chaos to clarity, then really what we're doing is we're talking about taking more profits off the table for your organization. Now, I want to introduce you to a term, and I wonder, are you familiar with a term called data fabric? Yeah. Yeah, it isn't a term that is something that Talend has come up with. It's a term that Forrester and Gartner and other analyst firms are using to describe the journey from data chaos to data clarity. And in that process, and we're speaking about what we call a data fabric, which means giving your business, this bank, access to clean, compliant, timely data in any format at any time. Now the terms sound familiar, but what I'm talking about is a different approach than traditional BI. BI is at least 10 years old in terms of talking about trusted data. But think of the data fabric as a mesh that sits on top of all your SaaS application, all the mainframe applications, all the legacy data sources on-prem, in the cloud, or in your hybrid environments. Now, what happens in this mesh is metadata becomes key. Metadata is kind of one aspect to it, and the data application data is another. It allows you to model out the different changes that users are making. It maps and allows for data connections across the lines of business. And so what we're going to talk about a little bit is this thing called a data fabric. And maybe the best way of doing that is to talk a little bit about, for the moment, about Talend and Talend's ability to enable data clarity through our data fabric platform. You know, I'm using this whiteboard, and when we talk about data fabric from Talend, Talend is really in a great position. We're really one of the only platforms out there that does this. We unite data integration, data governance in order to deliver trusted data at your fingertips. So think of it as a platform: data integration, data integrity and governance, application and API integration. We have this capability, which we'll go into in further detail in another conversation, which we call a trust score. We do this on the cloud, we do this in a multi-cloud environment, and we do this in a hybrid environment. Now, one of the reasons why I joined Talend is because I wanted to be with a leader in the Magic Quadrant. You know, for the 5th year now, Gartner named Talend a leader in the Magic Quadrant for data integration tools. You know, you mentioned in our last conversation that providing a highly compliant environment was job one for the thousands of applications that you have today. And I want to use 3 basic words. The first word is united. The second word is flexible. And the third word is grows. Right? And so Talend as a platform is, according to Gartner's Magic Quadrant and our thousands of customers, Talend provides the easiest use and the fastest time to market of data. And it offers banks like yours the ability to leverage trusted data with a high data quality at the speed of business needs today. When we talk about being united, unified, what we're talking about is a platform, not a point solution, but rather a platform that is a whole suite of applications. They've been purposely built to work together. Instead of having you bolt together a bunch of applications, we've built a platform that works naturally and native together and have been built from their development onwards with this intent. And what's great about Talend, the more I learn about it, is that, you know, we work well with others as well. Not only does our platform create a robust and complete offering, but it also can be augmented by other tools from other vendors, and you can add it into your own organizational needs for a full lifecycle management. And it creates this flexible model that we're talking about. Now, we started out, our whole heritage is open source. And so that open source background becomes an enabler for you today. It means that, you know, when we're talking about the newest tools and data approaches using Java, it fits right into your CI/CD platform. It works with modern cloud and hybrid cloud architectures, and it can work with real-time environments such as Kafka and other streaming data management approaches. So the approach enables you to use today's technology and the architectures, but also the future technology that is coming up, and it continues to allow your teams to innovate and grow. Now, the last word I have here is growing, and I mentioned growing with you. I mentioned that it is a suite of applications. You can start with data ingestion and improve the environment with data quality. It'll allow you to take on Hadoop or Spark analysis. And we do this with you in mind, where you need a hybrid option that works in the cloud or only in the cloud, or also could be pure on-premise option based on your governance requirements. It allows, it will allow your bank to have a maturity process as you're bringing more and more lines of business into this data age, and utilizing the best what data fabric could be used across your organizations. When we talk about our customers, there's a host of different types of companies that we work with. I work with some of the top tier banks in the world, tier 1 finance companies and processors that have global needs. We're working with a tier 1 bank here on Wall Street, where they had a trusted data problem, but they also had this speed problem. And what we did was we worked with them, and Talend as a core platform has become a way that they can improve and provide a trusted and secure environment across the whole enterprise. And in their case, they're using Talend, the Talend platform, for over 125 different development environments across nearly every data processing, line of business, architecture format. And they saw at a senior level what they could do across their business to make Talend a strategic vendor. I mean, Talend, this account that I work on, Talend allows them to drive business outcomes that are important to them. Again, over 125 different developer groups, over 1,000 or nearly 1,000 developers. Each developer is connecting with business value, is connecting their business value with the data. And when we started with this bank, they were on the path to becoming a data-driven enterprise. And what our partnership with them has enabled them to increase both speed and integrity. And from a next steps perspective, what we're looking at is how do we go from data chaos to data clarity and move beyond these averages in your marketplace. So perhaps some next steps that we might consider are a conversation. I can offer a deep dive into the platform, but also uncover needs and projects your teams are working on. And perhaps an area of interest is to do a double click on the capabilities around trusted data, data quality, by talking about what we call trust scoring and this trust score approach. In fact, we have a trust assessment, and that assessment allows you to analyze the quality of some of the data and look at some steps on what we can do together for your business. I'd suggest a technologist conversation on where we've already had success with other banks, with driving banks like yours to having greater data success in your enterprise. How does that sound? Great. Well, thanks for your time today. Let's connect next week. I hope you have a great afternoon.